Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Go for a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Hey, Let's Hang Out listeners. This next feed drop on our hiatus is from Coming Out Pod. We have been fans of Coming Out Pod and friends of the pod for many, many years, pretty much since the first year of Let's Hang Out. We have loved Lauren and Nicole. Now, Nicole has left the podcast, but we still love you, Nicole. So Lauren is holding down the fort. Every single episode of Coming Out Pod features a different person's coming out story. This particular one features writer Elliott Maya, who talked about when they were younger, basically trying to hide their queerness by bullying other gay people. And then, of course, in the gayest way possible, falling in love with their gay victim. Sounds like a movie I would want to watch. If you want to hear more about Elliott's coming out journey, this episode's for you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Coming Out Pod. Pride is winding down, but I would not send you off into the world without doing a wrap-up Pride Month episode. So that's what this is. But first, as always, a Queer Root shout out. This was suggested also by a listener, but I've tweaked it a little. Shout out to you if your Queer Root in any way is the movie Terminator 2. Now, this was suggested, as you may have guessed, specifically Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, who... First of all, her arms are like well known. The whole movie is like her in a tank top, like shooting guns, like smoking a cigarette, wearing sunglasses. Very sexy, very queer coded. But also, I was obsessed with Edward Furlong in Terminator 2. Little androgynous teenage boy. I wrote him fan letters in middle school, so I feel like he's a good queer root. And then last but not least, maybe you just like the body of a totally chiseled, built dude. Arnold Schwarzenegger, famously naked in the beginning of Terminator 2. He's naked. So I'm sure that did something for a lot of us. So Terminator 2 really firing on all cylinders, regardless of what you're into. Shout out to you. If anything in that film was your queer root. Y'all, okay, today I am here with Elliott Maya, who goes by Leo. So you're gonna hear me call Elliott Leo. That was you would have figured that out, but just a heads up. Hello, Leo. Welcome.
Hi, hello. I have to pause you real fast. I have never felt more called out than the queer root you just did. You just named like not my queer root, but just 3 definitely at least like partially pivotal figures of like, yeah, I on all cylinders. Every character you just listed, I was like, yeah.
That makes me so happy when the guest relates to a queer root. So Leo is a writer, primarily television writer, a lot of animation, which is so goddamn cool, and a gamer, among many other things. But I met Leo. We met in, and you've heard me mention this group before, a COVID conscious creators like virtual space that happens about once a month. My guest Sarah Mossman was also we met in that group as well. So yeah, so this is gonna be another episode where we talk about COVID. Don't you dare turn it off. Don't you dare turn it off. We're going to talk about a lot of fun queer shit as well. But yeah, for those who have followed this pod for a long time, you know that I am still very COVID conscious. I've talked about this a lot on this podcast in passing, but I've also had guests who have specifically addressed it. And if you're newer to this podcast, episode 262 gives a really good like COVID 101, like like beginners sort of. It was the first episode I ever did about COVID with my friend Diana, and it literally, that episode starts with like a 5-minute crash course and like, here's all the stuff to know. So if you're interested, that's episode 262. But we're gonna get to all of that stuff. First, we're gonna talk about Leo. Leo, for the people, how do you identify?
Yes, so like I'm Elliott or Leo. I like Leo the best. It's kind of the more fun name. I use they, them, and a sprinkle of he, him, and like a fruity Victorian dandy boy way. Like not like in a man way, but in a like Oscar Wilde would be eating this up sort of way. Like that's my energy. I identify as queer, or what I like to call more like buffet gay. Like
These
basically.
Are good.
Thank you. Like, basically, like, when you're at a hometown buffet for whatever god-awful reason, you gotta have a little bit of everything, right? You can't just, like, having just one plate of one thing would be absurd in that setting, and that's sort of how I approach it. I'm kind of like, I'm into anything that catches my eye. Like, very much, like, appreciator of, like, male bird energy, of, like, if you're big and loud and, like, do you do a little dance for me? And I'm like, I like it. Like, I'm here. Distract me, entertain me. I'm simulated. I'm down for it. So, like, if you got enough glitter on. Yes, like, I'm a peacock lover, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Those are some great, you are a writer. Those are some really good descriptions. I really enjoyed all of that. Okay, fantastic. So, Leo, where do things start for you? I know nothing about your background. We just met that one time, and like we have friends in common, but I know nothing about you. So yeah, let's spill it.
Yeah, I feel like my coming out story is kind of like, anticlimactic is not the right word, but I think it's like what's the right word? Chronological. Like it's not quite the right. It's like something took a normal story,
like a
cut it up.
Coming out
yes,
story.
It feels like Tarantino directed my coming out story. Like it's like not quite in the right place. You're kind of like, you don't know that till the end. You're like, wait a second, that wasn't normal there. What happened?
I love it.
But I think the basic of it is like, I started realizing that I was like not like the other girls in many ways when I was like around 9 years old, which is also unfortunately the same time I started puberty. Like I don't remember a time when I was not pubescent, which is like horrendous.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. I was like so the opposite, where I started like super late in puberty.
So jealous. And I'm sure this grass is always greener, but I was always just like, wow, would have been nice to like run in middle school and not have like tits hitting me in the eye, you know?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah, so I was like definitely like an early developer, as my grandmother would call it, unfortunately, which I'm like, I hate that for other reasons. But I, around that time, you know, all the puberty hormones moving fast and loose at 9, I was like really obsessed with like anime and manga. And if there's anything that like an early 2000s anime is going to have, it is like an absurd amount of fan service. I mean, like tits, ass, booty, panty shots for no reason. Yes, and I'm at 9, like, I'm good with this. Like,
oh my God, yeah.
Like, like my lowest point is like a quote unquote, you know, my lowest like not quite a feminist moment of like, you know, this is bad for storytelling, but also like good for me individually. So you know, like,
no, I feel you. Yeah. I get it. Okay. And where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, so I'm born and mostly raised in like California and like some Arizona. Yeah, but I grew up in. Do you know where Temecula is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never been there, but isn't it really pretty?
No.
Oh, is it not pretty? I thought it was like wine country.
It is. I think I'm just biased. Okay. It's wine country. Okay. The wineries are biased. I think it's like hell on earth, but it's also, I think, where in textbooks that when the term white flight is used to describe like the demographic shift, Temecula is literally the case study of it.
Gotcha.
Of like white people being like, oh no, there's like people who aren't me in the city. Let's move somewhere new. Like, oh, Temecula, that sounds nice and exotic. Let's start here on. Like that's where I grew up. So since you know the stereotype of like one in a class of like 30 kids, it's like me, the only black kid, or my brother, the only black kid. Like for a while, until I think my until I was like around 16, there were like more people of color in the area, but a lot of it was like I went to high school and middle school at like largely situations where it was just me, and I'm like that obviously like adds a different flavor to my coming out, because there's also the race aspect, and there's the gender flavors, as well. But like, that's where I started.
And we had our first of many of Lauren realizing her white privilege moments where I'm like, Temecula, isn't that beautiful? Wine country? And you're like, of course, that's what I've heard of it and what I think of it. So like, okay. Good reframing. Thank you.
A masterful pivot by you as well. But it just was like... What a off. I was not having a good time, but I will give it a bit of grace here in that Temecula definitely has its own issues outside of my family, but a big part of my issue with it was my family. So I grew up in a very, very Christian household. Like, are you familiar with Jehovah's Witnesses?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. That religion is... It bears a lot of the tenets of also like a cult. It's not technically one, so I won't say it is, but there's a lot of similarities there. And one of them is the whole name and shame tactic, and the whole like, if you get disfellowshipped, you get cut off from your entire family, and you are not allowed to be spoken to by anyone in the faith. So you can... Including, like, if I was a child, like a high schooler, like, if I got disfellowshipped, my mom would not speak to me. Either would get kicked out of the house, or they would, like, know what it's like getting made invisible. And so, of course, they have a high, like, return rate because, like, if you've been sequestered from the outside world, like a lot of us were growing up, then all you know is your congregation. And then when you try to leave that, it's like... the social contraction, like you've not been taught how to be quote unquote normal in society. You've not made bonds outside of it. You don't have a job. You have no money. You have nothing. And so you have to go home. And so I'm lucky that I got out of that. But part of me getting out of that was realizing I was queer pretty early and being like, these bitches hate me. They don't even know who I am yet. And I just like from a young age, because I knew when I was around 9, I was like, I'm not straight in some way. I don't even know what those words really mean yet, but I'm like, I know that's not me, And so I would just
but your family was like in it.
Yeah. In it. My mother's entire side of the family are all Jehovah's Witnesses. So it's like, I don't have a single like blood, what is it called? Like, distant relative or like, I keep wanting to say second and third party. That's not the right term, but like, not my immediate family. I don't have anyone
extended family
on my mom's side. Yes,
family.
Thank you. I'm not like, I don't know, third party, like I'm voting or something. I don't know.
You're a libertarian family.
I know. One more bit of tea. They're basically libertarians if they could vote, but they're not allowed to vote. So part of the religion
Witnesses aren't supposed to vote?
Nope. No voting, no birthdays, no holidays.
I knew the no birthdays. I didn't know the no voting.
Yeah, no voting. It's quote unquote being not part of this world. And being part of this world means like having anything to do with politics, quote unquote aberrant sexuality. Anything like that. So like all the things that I was hitting, I'm very politically opinionated. And was like not straight, was not cisgender, and I was kind of like, ooh, I gotta get the hell out of here, like pretty early, which I think saves me from getting caught up in it. Because I think I was more like, I would love some direction in my life, but like not this direction. I gotta get out of here. So that's how I escaped that.
Oh my God. I mean, we're laughing, but I cannot imagine this as a child. Like this must have been so oppressive. Like just. Jesus. Okay.
I mean, no pun intended, but Jesus. But that was sort of where I was like, that was my like little emotional petri dish, my social petri dish. And I was like one of the few kids in my congregation allowed to go to public school because my mother like fought for it essentially. Like, me and my brother were the only two in public school. Yeah.
So there are Jehovah's Witnesses schools?
No, they're all homeschooled. They're supposed to be homeschooled.
I didn't know any of this. Okay, wow.
So it's very geared towards retention because, like, it's also what I joke around. It's like an old people's religion of like a lot of the aspirations for it are things that are much more appealing to people who are like later in years. And so there's very little to retain children and young people and young adults, which they need. So the answer to that was if we reduce their contact with other children outside of the faith, they have nowhere to go and no desire. So yeah, it's a whole like system of like keep you at home, don't leave our sight until you're old enough to like want to be here and be inculcated enough. So yeah, but I was like, I know this can't work for me because I know your God hates me. So I'm like, what am I doing here? So I was just sort of like,
open about that hatred, like in the church, like that you were observing that by 9. So they're like talking outwardly about it.
Yes, like talking outwardly and in meetings when people would basically the way that meeting session is sort of like church mixed with like a Socratic seminar where you raise your hand to like read a passage from the Bible or give an answer because they're asking like questions to the people it's very interesting version of church. It's more it's a study group. It's a Bible study group, but like you do it like 6 days a week. And at that time before like they had things changed later. It was more like I spent 3 days a week, about 2 to 3 hours each time in like congregation official meetings. And then outside of that 2 days a week, we had Bible study. And then on the weekend, we did 2 to 4 hours of like quote unquote field service, which is like walking door to door and like preaching the word. And I'm like 9 to high school. So you can imagine the social awfulness of that, where I'm like, my worst fear was always like, I'm going to knock on the door and someone I know is going to be there. So I don't talk about it at school, you know?
Oh, gosh. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, that's, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, boy. Okay. So this is the background for everything.
Yes. So this is the context background for all of it. And so I was like, oh, yeah. So I think it kind of framed my view of like queerness because I was like, oh, okay. From age 9, I'm like, oh, God hates me. Cool. But in a way, I was sort of like, I'm born at rock bottom. I can only go up from here. So like, I may as well have a good time while I'm here. Right.
Yeah,
like,
that's a great optimistic way of looking at it.
Exactly. And also, I was like, I don't want to be in this space, but also that religious context sort of ruled my life like an iron fist.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you get out of something like that, especially if you're young? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Basically, my only answer was college because also part of the edicts of the faith are not making more money than you quote unquote need and living like a very small and humble life. So like my mother was luckily, she was enough of an outlier to give me enough space to escape and my brother to escape. But I have a brother who's 3 years older than me. He will play parts in this story. But my mom was like is a workaholic. So she was very much like I had to work hard because she was a single mother. So she's like, I have to make all of the money now because I'm not getting child support from my dad.
Yeah,
I gotta
so she had a little more of like a real world understanding maybe than like,
And she was like, you guys need education because I don't have money for you. You guys have to go get good jobs and to get a good job, you need a good education. So like, actually my children will be in fact going to college. So
God.
I was like, oh, thank God. I had to pay for it myself, but that was the goal. I was like, I knew at least I was not going to have to fight her on that part. So I spent from like age like 9 or like middle school age, I was like, okay, my only goal right now is get to college because I literally can't even imagine life outside of that. So my story is less of like, I think a lot of people do know young, and then it's kind of like, I gotta come out. And then some people are kind of like, I had no idea and everyone else knew. And mine was sort of that in-between of like, I knew like most of it. I was like, I know I like girls. I don't know all the gender things yet, but I know I'm like, I got called tomboy a lot. And, but I did know, I was like, I liked that being called that better than like, girl, I hate being in dresses. Like when I was forced into femininity, it was like the most abhorrent thing to me, which I think is hilarious now. Cause like, I love like makeup and earrings now, but like not giving the choice to do the other parts of me made me hate everything else.
Yep. Well, okay, so you paid your own way to college. Like, so...
Not quite. A little bit. That was my intention. So, like, from a young age, I also was like, I would bring duffel bags to school to collect the recycling and take the recycling home and like cash it myself at home. Like I was stealing from my college, from my high school and my middle school, like just like saving up as much as I could. To, like I was like,
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, my schools were
low-key
terrible.
theft.
Yeah, I was like, shut up, like, I'll take your money, like get out of here. So yeah, I was like really working towards that because I think, in a very real sense, I truly could not imagine a future while I was in that space. It was just such a dominant part of my life. And I was like, I won't begin to live until I'm out of here. And the only way I know how to get out of here and sustain myself is like getting to school. So while I was in high school, I was like, I got my first job at 12, being a sign spinner on like the street for like Verizon or something. And so that's kind of the backdrop of my high school experience. Like the emotional part of my coming out was like, I was one of those people who like had a crush on like, if you became like my best friend and you were like a girl, I probably had a crush on you. Yeah. Sorry if you're listening to this somehow on accident and you're finding out now, like here you go. But I don't think it was. I don't think it was like a secret either. I think like I talked by like the end of my high school years. I was kind of talking around queerness, in like a largely like straight-ish group, and like no one was saying the words. But like I kind of understood that they knew I was not like fully straight. Okay. And I kind of like stayed in that place with them. But also it's strange because like this was like I graduated high school in 2014.
You're so young.
I'm a little
whatever,
baby.
Me too, same.
Yeah. Like we're the same age. You and me, we could be twins.
I know, I was thinking the same thing.
But like, yeah, that was sort of the backdrop of that. But like 2010s and then in middle school before that, we're still very much in the like being gay is really like is a joke, right? Like a very like saying slurs, like whatever was very much like funny. So like we're all, and I'm like me toxic. I'm part of the problem. I'm saying the same words, even though we're all
so many of us were doing that. Yeah.
Even though it's like hilarious now, I'm like, oh, my friend group had to have been like, I mean, if you want to say it, like, sure, it's weird telling the joke in front of you, but like, sure, yeah, you're not saying anything, so we're gonna just keep saying it. So I'm kind of just like, hey, gay people suck, and they're like, okay,
like,
buddy.
Is this part of your journey? We'll go on.
They're like, yeah, sure. So like, it was still like I would not call it at all like a like safe space for me. It was not discussed. So yeah, me and my like, I hate the word lady friends, but me and my lady friends were like it having that weird, but like genuine friendships. So I like, really did care about them, and I was not like seeing them as like sexual objects or anything. I was like, I care for you. I also am like, it was more like I could be attracted to you.
I relate so much to this, yeah. I felt like I would feel guilty about a lot of my friendships because I was like, you're my friend, but I do like think you're hot and I have a crush on you. And so I felt like that was like being like deceitful, you know, like, which is so shitty because it's like you're not gonna tell them. That would make everything weird. So it's like you feel like you're being deceitful, but what are you supposed to do about like you can't. I relate to this a lot.
Right. It was very stressful looking back. I was just like always like, is today the day they're gonna like find out I'm like some kind of gay monster like lusting after their bodies, you know?
Yeah,
but
totally.
I think for me that feeling was also alleviated by the fact that I did also like men. So I also had a crush on like a couple of the guys in our group. So I kind of was like, I think it's even, you know? It's not like me like being weird. It's like I spread it out a little. Everyone's sort of getting a bit of this mess.
Egalitarian.
Like, okay. Yes, it's I'm all about equity and equality. You know?
You were an early DEI ambassador.
Yes. The original pioneer of DEI was me in middle school and high school.
Perfect.
But yeah, that was my sort of like friend holding pattern. But I unfortunately was another gay stereotype. I was a gay bully in high school.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Chris, if you're out there, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
But like essentially, there was this guy in my high school named Chris, and I won't say the last name, but his name was Chris. Sweet guy, and he was one of those people who I know it's not correct, but people felt very entitled to be like, oh, you're not performing masculinity, quote unquote, right. You're gay, right?
Yep.
Like you must be
Yep.
gay. And he was one of the people who was like, what? Like, no, I'm like not even thinking about that. So I'm like, in hindsight, I'm kind of like, that was the answer though, right there, Chris. You weren't thinking about it. So like kind of, you know? But like he was kind of was getting like sort of kind of bullied, but very like subtly, and like I don't even think he registered it for until I told him it was happening. Like I was like, you understand people are bullying you, but like I like fixated on this poor guy because he was doing the thing that I wished I could do, which was I was like, I know who I am. Yeah, like I was like, I know who I am on the inside, but I am all but like gagged and tied both like at school and in my social life. Also part of the thing too was around my senior or sophomore year, one of the other JW families, one of their a new family moved in, I believe, and their son went to my school, and now school was no longer safe because anything he saw would be reported. So I was like, I don't even have this anymore. You know, I was like, I don't know who talks to who. I don't know what the friendship level is like. So I was like, I can't even safely express this in the way that I was starting to want to because the repercussions were like, you know,
you're the spy there now.
It was like, there's a spy, but I don't know where and who he is. You know, at any time I could be undone and like the jig is up. You know, I didn't want to deal with that, and like that would have been like kicked out of the home, or like my door would have been removed from the hinge. Like crazy things would have happened, and I was just like my family was also a family that was sort of like, I was told a lot things like, I don't have to feed you. That's what I choose to do. So very much a very like transactional, conditional setting of like, if you're not a follower of God, then you don't belong in this house. And so I was kind of like, well, I need a place to live so I can go to school. So I guess I gotta lie. You know?
So much that you're dealing with at the same time.
Yeah.
Holy shit. All right.
Yeah. And so I'm like, but I'm seeing this guy, sweetest guy ever, sweet guy Chris, like basically, and he did end up coming out later, but this guy who I was like, I'm clocking, I'm like, oh, you're gay as hell. Like, me too. But like, I was jealous. I was deeply jealous and envious because I'm like, you are gay publicly and you don't even know. And you don't have to carry the burden of this. Like, I was like, oh, I'm livid. You know, that was my immaturity of like, I'm seeing in you what I wish I had, and you don't even know. And I was like, I want to like cause problems for you, basically. I started to bully him. Like, he was mostly just getting like teased behind his back, and then I made it overt. Like, I was the one who was starting to make it overt, but also because, you know, down the line, surprise, like gender change, like, and I think even starting now at this point, like my attraction to men was always sort of aborted or like never satisfactory. One, I was like I was afraid of men in like many ways, but also I was like, me at the time, I was not pulling men either. So I was kind of like, okay, they're kind of not a non-entity. And the men I was pulling vaguely were like weirdos and men who saw me not just as like a woman, but as a like vulnerable, like underage woman, you know? So it was the, you know, the triple whammy, the like holy trinity of like bad vibes, you know? So, and all I wanted, looking back now, I wanted men to be queer men to be attracted to me, to validate and see my queer masculinity inside.
That's so interesting.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah. So like some of my hardest crushes, and like I think also my first boyfriend in middle school, which lasted for like, I want to say all of a month, but that first boyfriend also very like queer, ended up being, you know, also coming out, and I was clocking him. I was like, I'm seeing you, I'm attracted to you because of your queerness, but you can't see who I am on the inside yet, because I have not, my internal self and my exterior self were very much not in alignment at the time. Like I was performing femininity 1 second, then trying to like hard pivot into like what I understood to be like masculinity, but also could never really do that because of my household and what I was allowed to purchase. Like I was not
Oh
allowed
my
to make
God. I
clothing purchases
cannot
on my
believe how much
own.
you were dealing with at once.
Yeah,
Because all the stuff you're
juggling.
describing would be so much on its own, but add the layer of a very specific religion that is very hardcore. And then add the other specific of being like one of a handful of black kids surrounded by white, like gentrifier people. So it's just like you have it from literally every angle. Like that's just brutal.
I had it from jump. I was just sort of like, and also funny thing, quick aside is I did not put a lot of this together until like last year. Like I didn't really realize that
How
it was
could
like,
you? Yeah.
yeah, I was just like, oh, I've been basically in like, basically PTSD energy since I was like 10 years old. So I was like, I had no concept of what normal was until someone very gently was sort of like, hey, I love you, so I'm going to tell you this. Your upbringing is not normal. Like, people don't grow up hearing those things. Like, it's not your fault, but like, your parents aren't normal. Your old community isn't normal. Like, you should not use them as a rubric. And I was like, oh, you know what? My life makes a lot more sense now. Like, that's abuse. Like, that's a bad place to be in. Like, of course, I've got all kinds of like fun constellations of issues, right? Like, I was like, that it makes more sense. I'm not inherently broken or whatever. I just grew up in the worst version of like the like abuse lottery that was possible.
Oh,
you know,
God. Oh my God.
I got a full Yahtzee, like whammy whammy. Like I got it all. I won it all. So like.
So you got yourself into college.
Yes. So I got myself into college, ironically with Chris's help. So basically I started bullying that boy. And then but I was bullying him, but also I was attracted to him, like horrifically, because he was a queer like man, even though he didn't know. Yeah. So I wound up being his like without we did not ever like engage physically, but there was vibes towards the end. But it was like I basically was kind of like in an attempt to bully him privately. I was a terrible bully too, because I was bullying him and I made him get me a job, and then I made him take me to the job, and he worked there too. So we ended up I tried to bully him. I ended up becoming his like queer confidant and like helped him basically come out to himself. And I was living vicariously through him as he began his like first forays into like gay cruising and like seeing men.
Wow.
And meanwhile, I'm also deeply jealous. Like, I'm like, what a fun time you had. And I'm still kind of half a bully, but also kind of, I'm like deeply yearning. I'm like, I both like you and I want to be you. I want your experience. And I'm like, don't understand why I can't have it. I don't even know if there's a way to get it. And so I'm deeply sad and alone, but also like, you're the closest I have to a peer. So like, we're going to talk, even though I'm also terrible to you at school. It was a very weird dynamic. Bad. But basically that job with Chris started helping me put together like making real money for the first time. Like we were tutoring international students in high school.
Oh, cool.
And so I was making the most money I'd ever made. Like at that time, I was like, I'm making like hundreds of dollars every week. And, oh my God, almost $1,000 like in like 2 weeks. Oh my God, like, it was crazy for me. So I was putting that away for school. And then I got a lucky break because of my academic success at the time. So I wound up nailing myself a full ride to college in the Midwest.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, I got to college and I was like, okay, this is it. I get to, my whole plan was like basically cut off my entire family except for my brother and my dad, who at that point I had told I was not straight. And they knew.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh my God. And were they accepting?
Oh yeah. My dad is like, my parents are divorced. My dad is like, spent many years as like a Black Panther and a counselor for like veterans and people and like gangs in New York and whatnot. So he's very much like, as long as you're not like killing people, I could not care less. And actually I'm happy for you. You look happier than you've been in like years. Okay. My brother was sort of like, he's like, we would read like manga with like girls with their tits out when we were like 9 and 12. He's like, I know. He's like, you thought I didn't know? I was like, I was like, cool. Figured you knew, but I just wanted to really put it out there for you. And he's like, don't worry, it's been out there. And I was like, okay, calm down, like it's fine. So my mom was the last person I told, and I ended up telling her my first year of college when I came home for spring break, because I was like,
oh, that's so soon. Okay,
I know. I had I think it was either my first year. Yeah, it was my first year, because I was like, it was weighing on me, and I was like, I want to tell her so that when I cut her off for good, there is nothing left undone. Because at that time, they had a
Wow.
terrible relationship too. Um, so after my first year too was like baby gay 101. It was like, wow, women, wow, rainbow, everything, going to fucking conferences for free with my college on like, for all the gay kids to
Oh,
get to. I was doing all of that. I was like,
that's
I got
awesome.
nothing but time. Teach me about women. I was like, wow. I was on 100% doing the goddamn most. And somehow the least, like I was like very much like getting involved with like the GSA and all the things on campus. But also very much like, well, women, like, I don't know, like me. And I had not even really had like an official, like consensual first kiss until
For sure.
until
You're
my
too busy
college.
fucking doing the signs since you were like
Yes.
12. Like, how are you going to have time to? Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
I was like the energy of like both like my heart was like or the ambition and like emotional grind instead of like a 60-year-old man who's worked in a factory for 70 years, kind of just clocking in,
Seriously.
time to clock in, but also the external exuberance of like SpongeBob, where I was kind of just like, wow, like
Oh,
a new world. I can like be happy here and like
oh
be
my
myself. And like quickly realized there are other issues in like college campuses and the adult world. And like it's not all, rainbow shit and ponies. It was other stuff. But like that was the first time of being like, I get to choose what my life looks like
Yeah.
and I get to choose who I'm around and they get to choose me back. It's not like beholden
Oh,
by blood family or
yeah.
religious ties or isolation. So I did a lot of learning that first year and felt secure enough at the end of that first year when I came home for a spring break to like tell my mom because I was like I did wait till the last week of spring break so I was like if I have to leave like
Yeah,
early
yeah.
I can go if it's fine it's fine but if it's not I had literally packed my bags
Yep.
and everything and I
Oh,
just put them by the door just ready to go or like and I had another bag that was kind of like I don't have time to get my suitcase because in case it like goes violent I have a bag of like the necessities I can just go right and so it ended up I ended up like sitting my mom down and kind of telling her like, "Hey, mom, like I don't know if you've put this together yet, but like I'm not straight." And I think at that time I might have had my first like girlfriend. I don't can't remember, but I think it was around then. But I was like, I'm not straight and I like am dating someone. And it was like not as bad as it could have been, but it was definitely disappointing. Like my mom did the delayed version of what we talked about of like the old girlfriends or old like high school friends who thought you were
uh-huh.
attractive. She's kind of like, does that mean you want to like sleep with me? And I'm like, I said I was gay, not like into incest. Like that's
That, oh my
yeah,
God. That was your
yeah,
mom's reaction.
yeah. Her first response was like,
That is
yeah,
that's a first on this. I've never heard. Okay, that to me feels like I'm gonna blame this fully on a very isolated religion because that reaction is so wild that you
yes,
equate I'm queer to you want to have sex with me, your mother. Like that is
yeah,
such a like I have been in a bubble for so many years and taught so many lies about what
yeah.
queerness is. I'm so sorry you had to hear that. I cannot imagine how disturbing that is to hear
Yeah, it
that.
was it was so like I had to literally like I was like my
That's so
patience was at
fucking
a
traumatic.
minimum. I was like, Mom, two things. One, I said I'm gay, not into incest. Two, I
Yeah,
like
that's
women, but I do have standards, so you don't quite meet
you
them
got some
for me,
shade
actually.
there. You're like,
So
you wish.
bitchy. Yeah, I mean,
Oh
you
my
wish I wanted to
God.
fuck you, which is
That
also still
is
terrible. But yeah, I was just
Jesus
like,
Christ. Okay.
yeah, I was like, lady, yeah, and I think she had do a whole thing where she like, ran away and then she came back like a day later and was sort of like I've like sat with it and like I was hoping for the whole like I've like I still love you situation, which like
Yeah,
she did
yeah,
mostly do. She's kind
yeah.
of like, I still care about you, but she's kind of like, are you sure? Are you really
Yeah,
sure? Like,
sure.
everyone has those feelings of like thinking women are
Yeah.
attractive, and I was like, I have sex with women. She's kind of like, I don't want to hear that, and I was like, okay, great. So, but I
Yeah.
just want to make it really clear with you. It's not like I saw a girl for the first time somehow that you like, and I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening to my new pubescent body at 19 years old? And I was like, no, mom, it's really much,
Yeah.
it's very really that I like girls. Like, I like men too, but I like girls.
Okay.
And she was like, I love you. Never speak about this again to me, but okay. And I was kind of
Yeah.
like, that's not really love, but okay, sure. So
But
that was like
yeah,
weird.
that is better than it could have been, considering
Yes.
the amount that I feel like she had been poisoned by the community she was in
Yes.
terms of what that means. So
Yes.
that's, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was a weird
shoot.
situation. And like now our relationship is like much better. And she's
Okay.
still like for a couple years she kind of was moving towards the whole like not not like accepting, but like tolerant of sort of like would
Mm-hmm.
politely half listen when I talked about like people I was dating and how happy I was, and then like
Okay.
would be like, but have you met this man? I'm kind of like, okay, stop talking. But like,
Yeah.
so it very much still kind of is iffy with me about it, but like was
Uh-huh.
making a lot of progress. And then when she retired at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, it went downhill because now her only
Oh,
social
fuck
outlet was
yeah.
her religion. And
Yeah.
it went from being like seeing normal people in the world that work for
Yeah.
like 8 hours a day to just that crew. And she's kind of like done not a 180, but she's kind of done like a 60
She
degree like
backpedal.
revert. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of like, we're kind of starting to beep, 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 like back up, back into the old ways. And I'm kind
That's
of just like,
really hard. I'm
yeah, but
sorry.
it's okay. I've put boundaries up with her where I'm like,
Okay.
because she tried to tell me like you can't talk to me about gay things. I was like, okay, then you can't talk to me about like religion. Do you see how we have nothing to talk about now? Like,
Yeah.
so because she was like, okay, you can
Okay.
talk to me about gay things. I was like, okay, cool, great, as long as you agree. Like, it's crazy to try to put dictates on a friendship or a not a friend, but a relationship, right? I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, it has to go two ways or it doesn't go at all.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as we head into Thanksgiving time, I want to start by thanking my wife, Kelsey, who has not only listened to just about every episode of this podcast for 8 seasons now, but who also is the only reason I'm able to make time to record it every week. She takes the kids, gets them dinner, and gets them ready for bed just so that Ellie and I can come on and yell about gay things into each other's faces for an hour. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people you're grateful for in your life, including yourself. I've been in therapy for a long time now, and one thing that's so important about therapy is how it teaches you to be more intentional. And being intentional about gratitude and how to show that to the people you appreciate is just one of the many benefits that I've gotten from therapy over the years. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, consider giving BetterHelp a try. I know how hard it can be to find time for regular therapy, and BetterHelp is designed to be flexible and convenient for your schedule. You can fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you want to start being more intentional about gratitude in your life, visit betterhelp.com/letshangout today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp, HELP.com/letshangout.
Let's hang out.
You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm. For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify. And when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling and, for shoppers, buying simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
Okay, so let's gracelessly segue into let's talk about long COVID.
Yeah.
It's a hard pivot, and I know this is tough. This is really tough to talk about. So, like, to whatever degree you're comfortable.
Yeah, I can talk about all of it. So I got my only like quote unquote really known COVID infection early on. Like it's so early that I don't even have like there's obviously of course there's potential that I had other ones because none of us had, at least I did not
Sure,
have like
none of
up
us.
to date.
No.
Yeah, like PPE for the
Yeah.
longest.
Yeah.
But I got so it makes me mad just thinking about it, but essentially in 2020, 2019, whenever everything started, I had a mild infection. So I had 2 weeks of like fatigue and like just feeling kind of like empty-headed for like 2 weeks, and then I resolved with my mom, people in my house who I was in contact with at home. Like my mom was like really sick for a hot minute, for like several days, like four or 5 days, was really sick, and then she began to recover. But like, so we had a very mild infection, but within 6 months, my long COVID started because you try to get back to like exercising because you're like back to normal, and it's like no.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know shit back then. Like,
Yes.
we did not know anything.
Yes. So, and for me, it was like a very like tumultuous on ramp to illness. So it was like I started with like IBS, like stomach pain. Like I was like eating food, and then it was coming out undigested. Like I was like my stomach acid is changing. Like I'm lightheaded. It just kind of escalated to I ended up getting like vertigo. So now I'm getting vestibular migraines, which like triggered while I was like on a family like vacation in Idlewild in high altitude, which I now know like my body does not handle well because of long COVID affecting my blood flow. So I'm like, of course, they're all having a fun time. I'm like wake up on the second day like sick as a dog, like can't like I'm in beautiful Idlewild and I want to go do things, but I'm like for whatever reason, my brain isn't working. I can't like do anything. And I was like ended up staying home like watching my little niece who was like a kind of a newborn-ish or like a year old at that point. So I was babysitting her and late all day like in the cabin like falling asleep and like feverish and not well and didn't like know what was going on. And then that night I was like, I felt like shit all day. I don't know what's going on. And while everyone was like, everyone had left into their own cabins. It's just my mom and I and like someone else in the other cabin. And I walked outside and it was pitch black out there. And I just felt like my whole head was like vibrating. And I looked up at the sky and the moon was there. And it was like, that like animal feeling that you're like, a predator is staring at me at my neck. Like that, like full body, like, like the hair on the back of your neck goes up. Like you just feel like something bad about to happen. Like that happened. And as I'm looking at it, the literal moon begins to spin, like turns into like a little like whoop 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 like whirly gig of light, and I'm like, oh, this is it. This is a mental breakdown. This is a psychic break. Like I'm like, oh yep, 24 years in the making. This sounds about right. And I was like, okay, like here it comes. And so I literally had a mental breakdown. I had to like walk into my cabin. I was kind of like, hey, so the moon is moving. Can you just, I know it's probably not actually moving. Can you just go outside and verify that for me real fast? Okay, I'm crazy. All right. And like that began like the mental, like long COVID of like the brain fog, I now had vestibular migraines. Like if I stood up too fast, I would like pass out with like post-orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Yep.
And
POTS, yeah.
It was like a rampant like downslide to just like I had every symptom. And I think by now year 4 or 5 since I started kind of like 2019 2020-ish, I've had, I think, of the 200 current cataloged long COVID symptoms, I've had 172 over 4 or 5 years. So it was a really bad time. There was a time where my 62-year-old mother had to literally like hold me up so I could walk around because I was too weak. Like I'm just like, I had like rampant inflammation. My eyes were going. I was losing eyesight in one eye for a while. I was like in and out of like conscious, out of like sense of self. Everything that made me who I was, unfortunately, my identity was, tied up in what I now know to be like more like ableist rhetoric, but a lot of my identity and sense of security and my self-esteem was wrapped up in being like, well, at least I'm the smart one in the family. At least I have that. Yep. And I felt like long COVID was like a little Grinch, like taking that last ornament off the Christmas tree, just kind of yoinked it right out of my life. And I was like, oh, I have nothing now. I'm like stuck at home. My worst fear, I can't go anywhere. I can't work. And I just got my dream job. I had just got my first job in animation. And that's when the long COVID started, like when the mental long COVID started. And I was like, I have to hold on to this. And so I basically was like working, thankfully remotely, but I would work remotely and, be quote unquote on the entire time. Like, hi guys, like it's time to work. I'm so excited to be here. Mm-hmm. And then that camera would turn off and I would just collapse into like a puddle. And I would just like sweat.
That's why so many people go, well, I don't know anyone with long COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, I was going to swear and I'm trying to not be angry. I don't want to be in my feelings. People do not know and do not understand that they do know people with long COVID. People are hiding it for all of the reasons that you're saying because, they have their dream job or whatever, or they have any job and they need to support their family. And some people with long COVID some people do not have the ability to hide it. Like you're saying, at the time when your mom was literally having to walk you around the house, okay, during those periods, could not have hidden that. But people don't, oh God, I'm sorry. As someone who also deals with chronic illness, people don't understand that it's a roller coaster of up and down. It's always variable. You have these up moments. And so people are really able to hide it more than you think. And that goes for not just long COVID, I hid my shit for like so fucking long with like chronic pain stuff that is invisible. You can hide that shit when you have to. So when people are like, if the numbers on long COVID were as bad as like you guys are saying when you like do your posts about it, I would know people. I promise you know someone who is dealing with this right now. I promise you, numerically you do. You do.
Yes.
And they may not even be aware of it, but they are internalized ableism, all the things we're talking about. They are working to make sure you don't know. That's my little soapbox.
Yeah, I love that you said it because it's like I had known about invisible disabilities and looking back on it, I like actually had more than I thought beforehand. Like I also have like ADHD and like other things like on the emotional learning side of things, but also I've had chronic pain since I was 15. I just had no language for it because I was told I had growing pains, even though I'm like 25. Like, I'm done growing. Like, there's nothing, I ain't going up no more. It's just out. Like, there's no up anymore. So I was like, I didn't have that language for it. And also I think because of all this rampant ableism, it's ableism is not just like in like TV. I think it's like, we're gonna kick the kid with a wheelchair. It's like, no, ableism is like the inherent structure of our society, and it is like disability justice is like the thing that that every movement should have at its center because it touches every group. There's no group of people under the sun who are not touched by disability. And like we all, if we are lucky, we will all live long enough to become disabled. That is the goal.
That is such a truth. And we are terrified of that. And I've talked about this, I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but the gray area between life and death, people can't handle that. Like, they can't handle it. So it's like, if COVID or whatever it is, isn't going to kill them, or they think it's not going to kill them, then they just check out of the conversation. Because to reckon with the fact that you can exist in a state where, yes, you are still living, but you are disabled, or you are dealing with like so much less ability than like people, that's scary. It's too scary, and so people just check out. I think
it is I completely agree, and it's a complete. I had to contend with it, so I'm like, fresher in it, but it is a complete loss of the fallacy of control that we build our entire lives of like, if I do everything right, if I'm a good moral person, if I follow the social rules, I will never get hurt, I will never be harmed, nothing bad will ever happen to me. And disability and pandemics and disease and just random acts of violence are the like sort of the Joker card that you pull in the middle of the deck. It's sort of like Uno reversed you. JK, at any moment this can be you. So instead of waiting until it's quote unquote relevant to you, know now that it's already relevant to you. It's already you will be this way if you're lucky, one way or another, because you can be this or you could be dead. And it's better to prepare for the inevitability of disability than it is to live in the fallacy and the unreality of I'm going to be like 30 and like hale and hearty forever. Like no one ever has been, but like the commodity culture that we're in has us treat our own lives as commodity as well. That sense of scarcity of like, if I give up, if I make space for the disabled, I'll lose my time on earth because my time is already so eaten up by like school and obligation. I can't bear to lose my time. And it's like, it's not actually yours. It's our time. And we could reclaim it together if we fought together. But if you choose the self, if you choose your personal very, very short term and uncertain gain over the collective win, we all lose faster, and people don't get that.
That was so well said. Like, oh, thank you. Yeah, and like I said, I get in my feelings and tend to get like angry and I'm less articulate, but you just really spelled it out. And yeah, I just and in terms of just like facts and all that, I just want to stress that because I know, Leo, you were talking about the infection happening obviously pre-vaccines. It was so early. But and y'all, if you heard my episode that I mentioned with my friend Diana, you already know this, but yeah, so vaccines do not prevent, well, they don't prevent transmission, first of all, but they do not prevent long COVID. There is belief that it can mitigate the possibility of it, but not to be like gloom and doom. I hate when we get accused of quote unquote fear mongering. These are actual scientific facts. It is unfortunate, but plenty of people who are up to date on, or were up to date on their vaccinations at the time that they got COVID are dealing with long COVID. So it is very unfortunately not, it's not a fail-safe by any means at all. And that's why people like me and Leo are so sort of trying to put it in the public awareness, because it I don't think these facts are necessarily known, and it is really scary, and that's why people tend to get angry when we sort of talk about it. But unfortunately, if you contract COVID, you are at risk of long COVID, period. It doesn't matter how mild, quote unquote, a lot of issues with that word, but it doesn't matter how mild your infection is. So yeah, I just do want to put that out there, because I don't think that information has been made widely known by our public health agencies. So it's up to people like me and Leo to try to tell you that.
Yes.
And I have so much empathy for folks not believing this or understanding this or whatever, because, and I've alluded to my health stuff on the podcast, I've never been that specific because I'm uncomfortable talking about it. It's like hard to be vulnerable. But had my life not irrevocably changed when I was 24 years old, it's so interesting, because didn't you also say 24? I was like, no, twinning. But like, yeah, I had a thing happen to me, and I had a doctor be like, wow, if this happened to 100 other people, 99 would have been fine. But like, oh, sorry, now you're stuck with it. That's basically what a doctor said to me. Jesus. I would not be as clued into the fact that your life can change, like, literally on a dime. But that is what happened to me. And so I have so much just like empathy for folks who are dealing with this and want to get not to happen to more people.
Yes.
That's like, yes. I just
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
No, I 100% feel what you're saying, because it's like that painful fervor. I'm like, I'm sure people tried to tell me in different times in my life this exact lesson. In fact, I know that line I said earlier of some effort. Oh my God, something I said earlier. Actually, I heard from like one of my first girlfriends who was like, disability is part of everything, and like you are only ever temporarily able-bodied, and so living life like you will be this way forever just hurts people who are disabled now and you later. It's better to handle it now than to wait. And I like knew that or thought I knew that, and then when I have become now disabled, very, very much so, like more publicly disabled, I was like, oh, I thought I got it, but I didn't. I still had an unconscious relationship to ableism. I still felt my validity was still socially being upheld by being quote unquote able-bodied or looking a certain way, moving a certain way, having a certain presence in spaces. And now that I'm like, I have been stripped of a lot of these things by force, I'm like, I understand now. And also, like, I think, Lauren, some of our fervor talking about these things is like, you don't understand what you have right now until it's taken from you.
Oh, God, that is so goddamn true. Holy shit. I remember in the early days of dealing with my chronic situation, I remember this, I had just crossed Crescent Heights on Melrose. Like that, I remember so vividly having the thought like, oh, well, when this passes, I'm going to feel like everything's going to be so much better when this passes. And I didn't realize that I'd be sitting here X number of years later and still managing it every day. And that's like so scary to think about. And I so respect that like people don't want to think about it because it's really scary. But I promise you are strong enough to engage with that thought and to try to do something about it. Yeah. And can I segue into, so when I say do something about it, here's what you can do. Please wear a respirator. And when we say respirator, that means a KN95 mask or a KF94, sometimes it's called, or the best one is an N95, or you can get really fancy and wear the elastomeric ones.
Yeah, elastomeric, big ones. They're cool.
Those ones like fancy schmancy. But you can just wear, respirator N95 is great. Please mask when you are in places like the grocery store, the pharmacy, a doctor's office. That's the big one. Please, for the love of God, wear a respirator when you go to the doctor's office, because people like Leo need to access medical care in a safer way so that they don't get reinfected. So yeah, that's some very simple stuff that you can do.
Also, I noticed there's also the financial portion of it for people too that I want to acknowledge. Like, these are not masks that you have to, or respirators that you have to like wear once and throw away. Like the average
No,
respirator,
no, no.
you can use like 40 hours until they're wet or damaged or dirty. An elastomeric you can wear like basically indefinitely as long as you replace the filters. Like they're very cost efficient. Also, if you happen to be, shameless plug, in the North Hollywood area, I run a group called COVID Cautious Queers, and the whole point of it is like providing both like event programming, but also material goods and personal protective equipment to people for free. Like if you need a COVID test, if you need a respirator, I got you. Find me on Instagram, DM me, I will get it to you. Like no charge. Like I'm here to help. Like there's also things called mask blocks in both in LA and Long Beach and all over this country now that will send you these things for free. So like the barrier to entry has truly never been lower. But I think that there's an emotional barrier that you also have to cross. And I think you can even, I would say, if you're not quite there yet, to acknowledge or look at your own self and like, a relationship to ableism or your own ability or what have you. I think that's fair. It took me a long time. I'm still working through a lot of these things, like right now, and I'm like year 5 almost. But I would say that like what you can do is if you need to externalize it, like there's cutie patooties that they're like me and like Lauren and other people and your neighbor, your bestie, anyone in your life that you're like, if this person was like super ill, I would be beside myself. I would be so sad. I would be so worried for them. And just think about that and be like, there's one simple trick that the CDC hates that you can do to not cause that harm. You just put on a respirator. It's super easy. It's super fast. I know there's a social aspect of it that can be very scary. But I would just also remind you that, like, if anyone in your circle would truly give you shit about caring about other people, like, are they someone whose opinion you really want to live your life by? They fucking suck, dude. Like, let them go. Let that shit dangle. Like the fucking dingleberry they are. Like, let that go. Like, I know that's hard, and I know there's a lot more to it. It's very complicated, but I would just say there's a process to it, and in the same way that I'm hoping people are becoming more radicalized about things happening politically, the genocide, everything happening, like, and I think people think conspiracy has to be like tinfoil hat or whatever, but there's
it's so much more boring than that. It's just like insidious shit. Yeah.
Yes, I think there's a quote, I believe, like Ursula K. Le Guin, and she says like, real evil is banal. The issue is
the
that
banality of evil. Hell yeah.
Yes, they've sold, like, Hollywood, my people, whatever. They've been sold this lie that like evil is like one guy in like a hot like leather tracksuit who's kind of like, I'm gonna blow up the moon or whatever, and it's never that evil. Is what Jeff Bezos says. It's like apathy on a satanic level. It is. I don't care if I don't see it. It's not my problem, right? It cannot be. Those people sleep well at night because they simply don't care, because they don't have to see any consequence. And even if they did, I don't think they'd care anyways. Like, that is evil. Money, the way that it moves in this country, is evil. A lot of the corrupt politicians, that is evil. What is not, like, it's never going to be like, my little mustache and like a made it on train tracks. It's never going to be that. And I think the minute you stop looking for that and you begin to see now who benefits from this, I think you're going to see that very plain stakes, low level evil that harm anywhere. And it's like, at the same way that it's mundane for evil to exist, good can be just as mundane, if not more purposeful. Your good can be in layers. It can be that respirator. It can be putting your money away from like a BDS rejected or boycotted company to ones that are good. It can be reducing usages. It can be amplifying your voice. It can be these small actions. It can be doing things that are small acts of hope and faith and love, like having a podcast about coming out and sharing that story. There are many ways you can be. Of course, you're part of this hopeful spring revolution. That's all of it is together. These are all intertangled acts, but you have to be willing to see the threads and weave them together. It's not enough to just see them blowing in the wind. You have to purposely reach out, grab them, and pull them in, and accept that you too are a thread to be woven into this like global tapestry. If you refuse that, then you feel alone and driftless. Well, yeah, you're not anchored to reality. You're not anchored to communal love or care or action. And if you feel alone in those ways, even in a crowd, I promise you that feeling will go away when you begin to connect with people who care like this, who care on a deep level and who want to love the world, even or especially when it is hard to do so. That's the work.
Wow. Oh my God. Again, so well said. You are such a writer. So part of the reason why I wanted to have Leo on the podcast is not just because you're incredibly entertaining and not just so that we could yell about COVID, it's Pride Month. If there's ever a time to give of yourself to good causes, it is during this celebratory month. And Leo, can you plug and talk about how you've been fundraising? And I know that you were so candid and so funny in your pieces that you wrote about how hard it is to ask for this kind of help, and just referring to yourself as a sick bitch. I really appreciate it. Yeah. But yeah, Leo did reach a point where they had to fundraise because long COVID is, among all the things we've discussed, also a very expensive illness to have. And so, yeah, I'd love for you to talk about your fundraisers, and folks, if you're listening and you have any cash to spare, here's how you can help Leo. And also, Leo, you have some amazing ways that if people don't have cash but perhaps have time or skills, that they can help as well. So I just want to give you the floor to talk about all that.
Yeah, thank you so much for teeing it up. I hope I knock this out of the park.
I will also put all of these links in the show notes, but this way you can hear a little more about what these various things are.
I love it. Yeah. So basically, as Lauren was saying, so long COVID has knocked me on my ass, I would say about 10 billion 11 times, but recently it's been even harder. So I reached a point this year, less than a month ago, where I was trying to work 4 jobs to make ends meet. I was making myself sick as a dog, sicker than ever, because part of my long COVID too is I have systemic inflammation and I have persistent viral loads. Basically, I have COVID still replicating in me. I'm not infectious, but it's sticking around and it's causing problems. One of my really fun 172 symptoms was organ damage. And guess what? Your brain is also an organ. So not just my gallbladder and my liver got damaged, but my brain is getting damaged. And we're watching that. The worry is that if we don't do something about it, it's starting to head more towards that true degeneration of Alzheimer's, dementia, of the brain structure of my brain starting to change, and we're trying to not have that happen. So there are some that are slightly experimental, some are less so, but there are some things that I'm fundraising for that will help me, keep my brain, which would love to keep it. I love being silly. I love having a personality. I love having words. I would like to continue speaking them. I would love to be able to do my job without being in excruciating pain, which really sucks for me personally, but thinking hurts. The top of my skull right now is hot, like hot potato. It's warm. It's painful, and working in Hollywood, there are lots of things I have to be able to do that either from the brain damage, organ damage, a bunch of symptoms I either can't do or cannot afford to do, or there are things that would help me do my job and speak in public, which is what I've not been able to work in person because I've not been in a room with proper PPE in years. That if I had certain tools, I would be able to do my job more safely and begin to look for less harmful work and not have to basically ask myself if I'm going to risk my life for a paycheck every single time I work a job. So I have a GoFundMe up raising funds for several devices that help with red light therapy and other things to kind of help and medications, antiviral medications, lots of things to kind of just make my life easier, make my life one that I want to stick around for, make my life one where my brain functions for it and I get to be me for as long as possible, as long as anyone can, really ask for. That's sort of what I'm fundraising for. And it's been a lovely response so far. I still have a ways to go. There have been more recent upsets, which if you go to my GoFundMe page, you get to read my very silly updates about things going on. Like, I think a week ago, a week and a half ago, I got what's called a stellate ganglion block, which is basically a big ass needle in my neck, into a nerve cluster. Yeah, super fun, really fun time that happened. But it's things that are this kind of ongoing battle, both with like my wallet and the medical system and my body, that doing it as one person is hard, and I might even say fucking impossible. But with the help of many people who are caring and kind and so smart, and oh so sexy, winky winky, who want to give me $1 or some such, that's been helpful. That's what all I'm really asking for is, like, if people have anything, that's awesome. If you don't have cash to give, I get it. If you can amplify my fundraiser, that's helpful.
Yes,
and then also
especially during Pride Month, because folks
Yes.
are hopefully feeling more generous and looking to give back during this Pride Month. So
Yes, give back to me. I would love it. There are ways you can help me if you'd like without money. I could always use like certain assistance with you don't come to my house, but there's things you can do without money. You can help me. I'll be moving eventually. I would love to not have to put my body into stress to do that. There's little ways you can help in person or not in person, like digitally amplifying or using a skill can helpful. Teaching a skill is awesome. There's a link on my in my Instagram bio and in my GoFundMe page, I believe, that can show you all the things that are not paid options, ways for helping me.
You do such a good job of detailing all of the cool ways that folks can help, even if money is tight, which I so appreciated when I went to those links. So it sounds like the best place to follow you and have access to all these things is Instagram, I think. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so what is that Instagram?
Yes. I will spell it too, but it's Bougie Basquiat, BouGieBasquiat, as in the artist. That's the full name on IG. That's where I talk about, my GoFundMe link is in there. I talk about a lot of COVID in my stories and just like my state of health and public health in general there. I have a couple other places you can find me on TikTok, because I made this before I knew the names were public. It's Trans Naruto. TransNaruto. Did not know people could see it. That's my little boomer moment. But yeah, I have started making videos recently talking about public health and other issues. I'll be making more content coming up soon, now that I recently let go of 2 of my jobs because they were making my brain swell. And so I gotta get out of here. So now I'm just on my 2-job diet. So I have more time to make videos and talk to all of y'all. So if you have questions about anything I said here, or I don't know, anything, you can ask me there. I can't promise to give you a good answer, but I'll give you a funny one. So come follow me, come talk to me.
Yes. Same goes for me, as I've said before. If you do have questions about anything pertaining to COVID, etc., you can hit me up. You can hit Leo up, because we understand that information is not readily accessible, which is by design, as we've talked about. But yeah, so please use us as a resource. And if you take anything at all away from this episode, please wear a respirator when you are in public spaces like supermarket, pharmacy, especially doctor's offices. But yeah, any place that people need to go, I'd say that's kind of like the bar. That's like the bare minimum. Please do that.
Meet us there,
just to make
please.
those that's our smallest ask. Just to make those places more accessible for folks who have to go there.
Yes, I also wanted to just remind people, I run a group called COVID Cautious Queers. You can find us by that same name on Instagram as well. I and my co-founder basically run events in the North Hollywood area and LA at large. We're spreading out, but providing events where people who are COVID cautious can go safely. They're all mask required. They're fun. We've done like plant ID walks. We've done like picnics in the park. We've done a like skate night sort of situation. We've done clothing swaps. Last weekend we did a fundraiser for Palestine. We raised like $1,000 and donated it to a family trying to evacuate. We do a lot of fun stuff. Find us there. I also run a Discord server with the same people in it, so you can still meet people virtually even if you can't make it to an event. So like if you go to that Instagram page, there's all the links you need to kind of get access either to future events or to the Discord server. You can also DM me there about COVID stuff. And then also, Lauren, I and our mutual friend Alyssa Piperis are working on a podcast.
She texted me and was like, say it on air, so we have to do it. And I was like, I can't be I'm not going to force you into doing it, but you're bringing it up, so
I will force us to do it, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
We are working on a podcast called Your Forgotten Friends, which is, I wish Alyssa was here to summarize it better than me because I'm clearly shit at doing anything shortly. But it's basically going to be about the lives of COVID cautious people who have been, in one way or another, forced to disappear from our old social worlds and forge new community bonds, both platonic and romantic. It's going to be talking about relationships, navigating dating, and my personal hobby, matchmaking. So if you're someone who's like, I'm COVID safe and I've not been able to like find anyone, and I'm like, year 4 of being alone and I'm sick of this shit, like we've all been there, I'm like, say less, call me at the hotline once it's up. We're going to begin literally like setting people up. Like we're going to be in like, giving people a section at the end, like a pegboard to like, if you give us a 5-star review, we'll read out your little bio that you give us. And we're going to be like, this hot tamale's in North Carolina. Yeah. Like come get your gay lovers here. Like come get wifed up, booed up, everything up. It will be there. So keep an eye on that. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll be the first to hear about that when it comes out. But yeah, that's sort of my last bit of shameless plugging.
Oh my God. I follow COVID cautious queers, obviously, and I didn't know that you were, wow. Now I'm starstruck. Yeah, I didn't know, but that's so great. And so, as you all know, I am at Lauren Flans on Twitter. I'm Lauren_Flans on Instagram. The podcast is at Coming Out Pod everywhere. If you've never given 5 stars or reviewed, hey, why not do that? That would be fun, but you get it. Thank you to my patrons who are still patrons, but also, as I've said while I'm on this hiatus, please feel free to cancel your patronage. Because if I'm not putting out regular episodes, you shouldn't have to be giving me money every month. I think that's kind of it for the wrap up. I am rusty on doing it because it's been a while, but I feel like we hit all the tent poles. Leah, this was so fucking fun. You are a goddamn delight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And y'all have a great last few days of Pride Month. Remember, every month is Pride Month if you have rainbows in your heart. That was just off the dome. Please don't.
I love it.
Horrible quote.
No.
Okay,
we're going to be putting that on our bodies and tattoos and on throw pillows everywhere.
Bumper stickers. And as always, watch the Instagram and Twitter, etc. I will always let you know when I have new episodes coming out. But for now, stay queer. All right. Y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Laura Cathcart-Robbins, and I am the host and creator of the podcast Only One in the Room. Every week, my co-host Scott Slaughter and I invite you to join us and lose yourself in someone's incredible Only One story. We talk to real people dealing with issues like infertility, the death of a loved one, human trafficking, and women who, fake it. Oh, and we want to be fair, so we talk to celebrities too. Emmy winners like actor John Cryer, supermodels like Amber Valletta, and rock stars like Ryan Dusick. Everyone is invited to share their Only One story with our listeners. With 21 seasons and counting, we guarantee you that Only One in the Room has a story that you'll connect with. This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt alone in a room full of people, which is to say that this podcast is for everyone. Download Only One in the Room on Apple or Spotify today.